Hello.
Hi, I'm feeling
Very good. Very excited.
great, good.
When I started watching porn, I realized I used to watch like good looking people having sex. And I was like, oh, that's why people in school make fun of me. Because that's what I will never achieve. Hi, my name is Alron, and my pronouns are he and him. I identify myself as a cis man, and I guess I would describe myself as someone who is so curious, who's going to ask you 1,000 different questions about anything and everything you say, but also like ask in such a way that you wouldn't feel bored answering them. So it's not going to be like I'm not going to ask you like back-to-back questions, but I'm going to ask like very fun questions. Yeah. So on one hand, I think it was all. So at home, I never had that problem. Right? My parents never made me feel bad about my body. They were very loving that way. They're like, "We love you for no matter what you are." So my house was like very great that way. I think for me the problem was in school because I was thin and like I think my teeth were normal, but I was made aware that my teeth look crooked, like they look what you call as faudia. And I was made aware of that, and I never knew that was a problem, but it got to me so much. I was like, oh, I need to like, oh, do I like smile less, right? So I was like, I was made guilty about like smiling because my teeth looked weird, and it was like there's always that, right? There's always that I was unapproachable because I looked less handsome or like weirder than my friends. So there was always that, and so I was always struggling with myself. Ki, why am I not fatter? Why am I not healthier? Like I remember in school, I was used to be so thin. Like my friends used to like, not even friends, just classmates would come and just like check the width of my hand, and I was like, oh, okay, that's weird. But I guess it was like very thin, and that's something for like very humorous for them. So I was like, oh, I need to like, I'm thin. It's not great. I think this also sort of, I think when I got sexually molested by my teacher, where I was at a coaching institute. So I was like asking questions, and while he's answering me, he's also touching me. And at the time, I didn't realize it. But I sort of felt validated. I was like, in a way, like, oh, what is this new feeling? I've never felt this before, and it sort of felt nice in like in that situation. But of course, like when it started happening like multiple times, I was like, okay, no, I don't want this. And for me, that was a great validation because one, he was talking to me. To be talked to when I was in school was like was a great validation. Like nobody approached me, nothing, right? So when a teacher was taking interest in me, I was always like falling in love with my teachers because they would like take interest in me. So when this professor would like take interest in me, I sort of felt that like validation. Oh yeah, thank you for asking me. Yeah. And then, but in that moment, when he started touching me, also I was like, okay, no, this is wrong. That's when I realized. That's when I realized the boundaries. Also, that's when I first realized the boundaries of like what I should allow, what I should not allow. Then I guess when things happen in college, so college was always fine. College was like everyone was much more loving, everyone was much more great and everything, and there was no issues as such in college. But yeah, that period when I was in school made me realize, in hindsight right now, that oh yeah, I was never made feel loved about who I am, about how I look, especially in school where most of like your fundamental feelings always develop there. For me, that was never the case. But everything else, I think college, work, everything else, I was always made feel very loved about my body. And I did because I was made feel loved about my body because nobody hated my body. When I joined college, nobody said like, oh, you're too thin, what the fuck? Like nobody ever said that. Everyone addressed me like a casual guy. And for me, that like changed my entire perspective. I was like, oh, I guess I was never at fault. I was never at fault. I was like, oh, Alron, you are who you are. Things will happen gradually. If you're thin, you're thin. If you're fat, you're fat. If you're healthy, whatever. What matters is how you like treat others and all. So for me, that has been my experience. But to even go like a little more specific, like even with my terms of penis as well, that was never the case. Like even when like I was never made feel ashamed about it because school में तो opportunity था ही नहीं. There was never an opportunity where someone like would have it like we never had like shower rooms or anything where someone have a look at it. But even like when I started getting into sex and like intimacy, I was never made feel bad about it. Maybe there have been a couple of situations where someone told me like you are nothing but a piece of meat. So it was like very fun like not fun, but I was interactive with someone who I met on Hinge, and we were about to get intimate or like anything. But then I was she made me feel aware that I was like not the best penis she ever seen, and I was like, "How? But I'm smart, yeah. Like I can make you feel love, I can make you feel loved, whatever." She's like, "Huh? But Al, you're nothing but a piece of meat to me." And because that's all, like, all she wanted was like just sex. And I was like, yeah, I can't do that. I just want to realize I'm more than more what my physical attributions are. Like, yeah, sure, like maybe I'm not the best penis you've ever seen, but I'm going to be the best sort of guy you're going to talk to, who's going to listen to you, going to make you feel loved, and like anything like a genuine human being will do. That's when I realized like I'm more than just what my body shows, right? Like my friends, my families, my loved ones know like the kind of person I am in my mind. So for me, that has been my relationship with like my body. Yeah. See, when I was in school, तभी वो hormones था. So तभी I used to always do it, but I never realized the actual joy of it. I was like, oh, let's just do it because like, oh, there's a hormones. And I think when I had sex for the first time in 2018, that blew my mind. I never knew I could feel anything like it. Because again, I did it my first time with someone who loved me for my mind. I knew for someone for a year or two where we were speaking so much, where we were conversing, but one day she was like, oh, you're still a virgin? Why not just like take care of that? And she was leaving India and sort of like a parting gift, whatever. And we had sex, and I never realized I was capable of that. Someone who was made feel ashamed of his own body, like by his school friends, to be having the avenue where I can give someone else that kind of joy, that kind of happiness. Because when we did it for the first time, she was so happy, and I was hoping I'm hoping she was not faking it. But when she told me like she was genuinely happy, I was like, oh, I made you feel that, really? And for me, that was like, I never realized it was in me where I can give someone that joy when it comes to like sensual intimacy and everything. But that was like the case for like a year or two. And that's when I realized with other people, I can always give that. Like, it's not just your body, but also your mind. I can like give that stimulation to, right? To conversations and to your conversations, even during sex as well, right? Even like that always got me like, oh, I am capable of that, right? With my own self, it was always okay. I never had a problem. I was always great. I knew what appealed to me, and I knew what would like get me going. Like when you're with someone else, you're always a tricky situation, at least the first time, where you're like, oh, this does not work for you, this works for you. But things started taking a downturn when I think in COVID, when my mental health got much worse, and to an extent where my past tragedies came back. So I completely repressed my memory of my first sexual molestation. I completely repressed it, and my second one also. I completely repressed this memory. I was like, kya karna? It's just a situation. But what happened during COVID is when you get when I was in a very bad mental state, I was at home, I couldn't go out, not happy where I was, like in terms of my job and everything. And I was like, and all those thoughts are coming back to me. So when I started getting back into like sexual intimacy after pandemic, I started getting very aware of my body, because when I was about to like be with someone naked, I immediately was reminded of like my professor who was touching me. I was like, why is this randomly coming to me? So it's very struggling, very, very struggling. So, but what changed for me, which was not there before, like the first time I had sex, what changed for me was I can only have sex when I'm comfortable, when you make me feel safe. Like my first time, it was like that rush of hormone, like the rush of energy and everything, and that happiness and everything. But I realized after pandemic, that was not the case. Like even as I excited, even as like I met someone new, like even if we do, I was like, no, we can't. Like we need to I need to be comfortable. I need to make sure like you're not going to make fun of me. I need to make sure like you're gonna give like a safe space. You're gonna make sure like it's not a one-time thing or whatever. Like just if it's not for you, it's not for you. I can't be with someone like it's a one-time thing. We're gonna be talking. I wanna be like sort of what I think what kids would call demisexual, where I guess it has to be more than just sex. It has to be conversations. It has to be like to make sure like one day we both know, oh, it's a safe space for you, Alna. It's a safe for me, or like for the other person as well. And once I realized that sexual intimacy, that's where for me it came, where I was comfortable. I was there in that situation. I was there in that situation with someone where like, oh, we've been building up to this in a way like we both know this like is a safe space for both of us. And that's when I realized this is exactly what the safe space, exactly what I was looking for. Like even when right now, even when I'm dating someone, it's not necessary that I'll have that safe space. But once I do get that, like even like when I start talking to them and say like we are dating and everything, it's gonna take time for me. And like, but thankfully I've had partners. I have a partner who is very that way, patient in a way. Like, yeah, you know what? We're gonna do things when you feel it's right. When you both feel like it is the time. So for me, that has been my experience with sexual intimacy, where I'm in a spot where, yeah, as long as we both are comfortable, as long as we set the ground rules first. Like, I'm doing it with you because I have feelings for you. I can't do it with someone who I don't have feelings for, or who I like genuinely so much. So you have to make sure, like, once we have sex, I'm gonna still like you even more because we have achieved a new feat. So for me, it's that. For me, I can't do it with someone who I can't genuinely feel love for, I feel liking for. I mean, it should be the bare minimum. But I also know people for whom sex is just physical activity, is nothing more than that. Like, they see a person with certain physical attributes, like good looking or whatever, like they would see someone, they're like, oh yeah, let's just have sex. For them, that is what, like, yeah, of course, like, yeah, but for them, it's like the physical attribution for them that's most priority. Like, for me, that was never the case, right? Like, even if I find someone like who is physically, like, oh, I think he or she is beautiful, I think I would like, probably, like, I would love to, like, take this somewhere. I can't do it unless I connect with them in their mind, unless I don't feel like, nahi yaar, by the way I'm having conversations with her, I don't think she wants something different, I want something different. And for me, I can't have sex with someone like, we both are not on the same page. For me, I have all these filters, I have 10,000 questions, right? Which is a pro and a con also. But yeah, it should be the bare minimum. But I also know people for whom it is not. I also know people like who are like, no man, I just want to have sex. Like, bhaad mein hai baaki sab kuch. It's just supposed to be a fling. It's supposed to be a one night stand. It's supposed to be like just some raw sexual magnetism, which I don't think I can ever, like, not at least right now, I don't think I have it in me, where for me it's much more than just a physical activity. It's much more than that. Like, it's so much before sex, after sex, so much, like, I can't even put in words, but to have sex with someone where you've been building up for like 2-3 months, you've been talking about it so much, you're like liking that person liking that person so much, and you're finally building up to that, and because you know the person, like, in and out, that's like, you're absolutely gonna have fun, you're gonna feel space, like, you're gonna feel safe. But for some, that is not a filter for them, and like, no, I don't mind if it's a one night stand. I just want I just need some, like, action. I can never. So even for me, it's a bare minimum. I also respect those people for whom it is not the bare minimum, for who have bigger priorities, who are like, no, I don't want feelings to get involved, I don't want any of that, I just want to have sex and get out, like, that's it. Like, I think what kids call wham bam, thank you ma'am, right, whatever. And yeah, even though for me it's a bare minimum, I think I also respect those for whom it is not. And as long as they are not getting hurt in the process, nothing else matters. As long as both parties don't hate themselves, or even, like, hurt themselves and the other, nothing else matters. Like, no matter what you're doing, just make sure, like, you're not going to hurt each other. So I just have to say this, the first time when I actually consumed porn, I think I was in the 7th grade. I think that was, in 2009, 2010, I don't remember. And I remember because we've got a brand new computer at home, and someone in school told me, you can go to this website and watch, and I watched it. And I remember next day I was going about my own life. And then I think my brother, who's much elder than me, I think he knows me in and out. So he just checked the browser history. I never knew you're supposed to clear the browser history. He checked and he confronted me about it. What is all this you're watching? And I was like, oh, there's something wrong, I'm watching something gay. He's like, no, it's normal. I understand, because I know I was at your stage. He's like, yeah, that's fine, but don't make it a habit, right? You don't need to consume all these things. It's generally going to corrupt your mind. At the time, I didn't know what he meant by corrupt. It's only later when I realized. So when I started watching porn, when I was in school, I realized I used to watch, like, good-looking people having sex, and I was like, oh, that's why people in school make fun of me, because that's what I will never achieve, right? I will never achieve that kind of body. I will never achieve that kind of a partner to, like, have sexual intimacy with. I'm not going to achieve that. And that's the perception I built. I was like, oh, now it makes sense why I'm getting bullied. Now it all makes sense why people do this to me, where they check the width of my muscles, right? I was like, oh yeah, then absolutely fair that they're making fun of me. I can never be that. For me, that's how I started perceiving porn as. When I went to college, I was always watching porn with the same mindset that that it makes sense why they're making fun of me. But when I was in college, as I said earlier, I was made feel more loved. I was not hated for my body. And then when I was watching porn, I was like, nah, yeah, ye thoda unrealistic hai. Like, like when I was in college, I used to think, no, I've had a girlfriend who has loved me for who I am. So this porn thing is absolutely bullshit. I can't, like, this is nonsense for me. And the first time I had sex also, when I was doing something, she asked me, why are you doing that? I was like, oh, I watched this. I thought it's normal. She's like, no, it's not. And then she was much more elder than me when, like, my first time. She was much more elder than me. She's like, no, it's not. It's absolutely a toxic thing that they're cultivating this notion that you're supposed to do this, you're supposed to do that in sex. But that's when she made me realize, no, it's for them, what they're doing is sort of an act. Alron, what we are doing is not an act. It's much more than that, right? So we need to realize what the boundaries are. So that's when I realized porn also does things which does not happen in real life. They sort of does stuff where you're like, oh, I think I should be doing that, but you're not. You're supposed to make sure that what your partner wants, what your partner does not want. And that's when I realized, no, I can't consume porn anymore. Like, maybe ek aadhar, maybe once a while I'll be like, okay, yeah, maybe I want that. But I easily replaced porn with something you call as erotica, right? Like lit erotica. Like, I realized reading it is like so much more fun. Like, it's like, of course, there are also unhealthy eroticas also, right? Which also corrupts your mind. Anything can corrupt your mind these days. But I also realized, oh, I can now find healthy eroticas, because even healthy porn was like sort of unhealthy because they're doing it as an act. They're doing it there. Even healthy erotica, when you find, it's so much more like romance. When there's like romance, like it's like 10 pages long or whatever. But it's built up so nice. It's like it's so much more than just sex, right? It's like a date involved. There's so many cute things involved. And I really enjoy reading through that. Because I can relate to that, because that's what I want. Like a nice dinner date, a nice romance, everything following after that. So for me, that's when I realized I don't want to consume porn anymore. And even right now, I generally don't feel the need to do it. Like, if I ever feel like I would, but I don't, because I'm not going to get satisfied with that. I'm going to have 10,000 different questions. I'm going to be like, yeah, but does she really want that? But aren't you guys just acting? Don't you have guys having like an entire set? For me, so much more than that, right? So I can't. So when I watch porn, I'm like, nope, no, this is all false. This is all untrue. I can't. It's an act. It's an acting. There's like a director. There's a DOP. There's everything. It's not true. It's not what I pretend. What actually it's an actuality. So I have resorted to eroticas. Even the folks I talk to, I tell them, try erotica once in a while. Try reading something. Try reading someone's like writing and like how they perceive sexual intimacy as. When you find that particular writer where you're like, no, I want to read only their stuff, because because of the way that person writes, you relate to that. And it's a when I'm alone, I make sure like, oh, I'm in my own comfortable space where I'm watching their stuff. As I was saying earlier, I watch or read stuff which makes me feel comfortable, which I know, oh, this is exactly what I'm going to be doing in real life. I won't be doing anything other than this. So yeah, that's how I am where I am, yeah. I think just to set up a context, so what I basically do is I'm a researcher, right? So for my studies, I travel to various parts of India. And I started this job August 2021. I had my first field travel in November of 2021. And something I always wanted, like, I can never do a desk job. Like, no matter what, no matter what field I'm in, I can never do a desk job. I always want to be traveling because that's where everything is, right? The outside is where everything is. When I was working somewhere initially, it was completely entirely field and like something I did not want to work in. And because I was like, no, I'm not making an impact. I always want to make an impact with the people. I want to make sure, like, what do society want? I want to know that आपको क्या चाहिए मेरे को बताओ. Tell me मैं क्या कर सकता हूँ आपके लिए. Like, tell me, right? You can be a politician, you can be a journalist, you can be a researcher, you can be anyone. But I always want to make sure, like, I deliver what the society wants. So I got the job that I was looking for. I started traveling for my job, and that's when I started meeting people. So as part of my studies, I never directly interview anyone. I always have a team who does interview. But I also travel to the villages with them once in a while, even though, like, just to see how they're doing the interview. But when I'm doing that, after we're done with the interviews and all, I just go around, I talk to random people. It's a village. and they are very fascinated because हम बम्बे से आए हैं, हम शहर वाले लोग हैं, उनको भी सवाल है, so they even talk to me. So I have not come across many, marginalized women as such, but I remember one time, I think my second travel, I was in a particular district, which I'm not going to mention. I was in a particular district where we were doing women development study, and we were there. The interview was going fine, but that's when I got a hit of what is actually toxic masculinity. So the women who were interviewing, they were not even showing us their faces. Like, they were literally hiding it with like a sari on their face, and they were like not even showing it to me, because my interviewer was a female but I was a male, so they're not showing it. And the man of the house, or a husband I think, was sitting next all like the entire time right there, make sure like it was a women development study. We're asking them, how are you at home and everything, and we're asking all this question, but she's not even showing us her face. And I remember one of the interviews, so it was a household where it was like sort of an area where women would do sort of like the sewing activity on top of their houses. So one time my interviewer was on top of a house. As a researcher, I wanted to go and check if you're doing a good job. I wanted to go. The man of the house is like, no, you can't come. अब दूसरे घर के मर्द अब यहाँ पर नहीं आ सकते. I was like, हाँ, पर मुझे मेरा काम है, मेरे को देखना चाहिए, लेकिन नहीं, आप नहीं आ सकते. So that's when I started entering like, oh, this is like where there's a toxic masculinity where you're like, नहीं, मेरी घर की मेरी जो पत्नी है वो सिर्फ मेरा ही शक्ल देखेगी, मेरे माता पिता या मेरे घर वाले की शक्ल दिखाएगी, हमसे बात करेगी और किसी से बात नहीं करेगी. And I was like, okay, like very weird. So in the same district where I was, after my work was done, I was just walking around and I came across a certain woman. Now that woman was abused, and physically abused, because I could see the stitches on her body. I could see her head was shaved because she was hit on her head by her husband, and I could see all that. She was not a part of my study. I had no reason to I came across a woman and I went somewhere else and I just inquired. It was a small village, everyone talks to everyone. And I just asked, kya hua udhar? And that man was like a tea shop vendor, he was talking to me, ye wo. And he was like, yeah, that woman was abused by her husband because that woman was found talking to someone else. I'm like, बात कर रही थी ना? She's like, हाँ नहीं, बात करना अलाउड नहीं है, तो उसके पति ने गुस्से में मार दिया. तो कुछ पुलिस फाइल कुछ नहीं, घर पे ऐसी बैठी है. She's like, हाँ, क्या करेंगे साहब, आप बड़े शहर के लोग हैं, आपको ये सब नहीं समझ में आता, ये छोटा गाँव है. That's what he was telling me. He's like, अब ये छोटा गाँव है, यहाँ पर सब ऐसे ही होता है. This is what it happened. This is what he's telling you. This is how it's supposed to happen. But I asked him, she just stopped with some other man outside the house, and she got hit for it, to an extent where she had to shave her head because it was marks, stitches and everything. And it just bothered me. Now, it was my third month in this field, my second field visit, my third month in this entire field, research. I didn't know what to perceive that as. I was like, how do I perceive that thing as? And it's just stuck with me. It just stuck with me. I couldn't get it out of my mind because I got in this field to make a change, right? I was like even behind the camera, whatever, I just want to make that change, right? Please let someone else take the helm for it. Let the state government, district government, let anyone take the helm for it. But I want to be part of that factor, that force, right? I was feeling helpless. I literally saw a woman who was abused and I couldn't do anything. And I remember my mother telling all of say, do a change, do something, help other people. And then I was like, I can't help them. I came back to Bombay and I still couldn't get it off my mind. Now, I did something in that time which in hindsight was not something I should have done, but I did. The moment I reached back Bombay, I went to my Baba and I shaved my entire head. I trimmed my entire head because usko nahi hai to mujhe kyun? What have I done which gives me a right to have hair? Why do I have the right? If she can't have it, why should I? Right? That was my biggest mistake because I personalized someone else's problems, and I realized it's much more than that, right? It's much more than, in that hindsight I couldn't do anything. I was like, no, I want to shave my head off. I want to take off all my hair. I trimmed my entire hair. I was like, now I felt better because now I'm going to be constantly reminded what I'm supposed to be working toward. I should never be forgetting that woman. For me, that's how I manifested it. It's no matter what, if I'm in at home, in church, or when I'm in office, I should always be looking at my own self and you did something, or you failed to do something which could have helped other women, right? I could have easily went and talked to saying like, Lele, these are the sections under which you can file a complaint against your husband. But I could not, right? Because I was scared. I didn't know what to do. I was helpless. And that's when I realized ki it's much more than that. It's much more than that. I can make a small change. I can change a life. But even the next neighbor house is happening the same thing. How do I bring that systematic change? How do I, from a systematic level, how do I tell everyone, you go sue against your husband, we will take care of it, or Alron will take care of it. Like one day there will be that, I'll create an avenue where I'll be part of like, I'll be representing like marginalized women or women who are like, you know, who are not tended to by their own family and by the society. How do I fight for their rights? So that, I started like, I've been working towards like, I have that in mind. Like, yeah, next time I see a woman who was abused or someone, I was like, yeah, I'm not going to like make it all about myself. I'm not going to like shave my head again, or like I'm not going to do something else. But I'm going to make sure, okay, I'm going to tell her. This is what I've done also, right? When I come, even my own society in Bombay itself, right? When I come across like women, like someone tells me कि मेरा पति मार रहा है, कि कोई मेरे को सब बताता है कि वो उसका पति उसका बीवी को मार रहा है, बोला ठीक है, ये सब हो रहा है, आप पुलिस स्टेशन जाइए, ये कहिए, ये सेक्शन से ये कर सकते हैं आप ये बताइए, ये आपको ये सुविधा है. That's what it all matters about, right? That's what it all matters. When I was like, I don't have to go to another village to find problems. Problems happening in my own building, my own society, everywhere, in my own community. How do I change that notion, right? So that's when I started like during COVID, when domestic violence took a whole new high, right? I really came across women, when I started like talking in the society, when I came across women who were like, कि वो पति उसको मार रहा है, मेरा पति मेरे को मार रहा है. And that's when I realized कि no, you can do this. You can do this against your husband. You can do this. कुछ हुआ तो police station संभाल लेंगे, but you can always do that. And that's what I've been working towards. And that's when I realized like you know, that's how it's supposed to be. So this is how you bring out systematic change. I've primarily been exposed to, you know, marginalized women, not much of children, even though I have come across studies or like surveys that we have done about you know, child sexual abuse and all. I was never directly involved in it, so I don't have much exposure to it. But at least with what I'm exposed to right now, I've always made sure like to make sure to give them the least thing you can give someone is information. Women, or for that matter, women who I come across, they don't want money. They don't want ghar ka ration, anything. Even if you give them information, if you give them the strength that they're looking for, you can change an entire generation. You can change how society perceives women altogether.
Like what you saw? Support us so we can create more empowering content for you. Like and share this video and subscribe to our YouTube channel.